welcome to another exciting episode of Real Talk with Millie. My vision and mission is to keep my viewers entertained, educated, motivated, and ultimately to push you to achieve your dreams and follow your passion. Remember, I've got this love affair with my natural hair. So normally I'll do my hair myself, but today I got a bit of help from my makeup artist, Mimi Ren, thank you very much. I totally love this style. A Milesetto brand made by Ebun. Ebun used to work in the oil industry and she's left to follow her passion in fashion. And this is what she creates. Everyone needs to have one in your wardrobe. It's classy, it's matured, and it is all made in Nigeria. I totally love it. Today's another exciting episode and I'm featuring someone that I've watched grow. And I'm extremely proud of. I tell you what, I liken her birth to Lion King. It was well celebrated. So stop laughing big. I'm going to introduce you that way, yeah? So, and this young lady that you're about to meet was born by a fashion icon. Her mom, I've never seen her hair out of place, even when we stayed together. So the apple cannot fall too far from the tree. So I followed our guest. I'm holding on to her name. I followed her career and I'm so excited. One thing I know Africa needs is someone that can mentor them, someone they can look up to, like an ambassador. So I talked about Ebun and Milesetto brand, and my guest today is in the fashion industry and she's done extremely well. Started off from the bottom and she has grown herself to become someone that can be reckoned with. GTB, which is one of the biggest banks in Nigeria, they've got branches in most of all over Africa, and also they've got branches in the UK, so it's actually an international brand. Invited my guest to speak and teach a master class in 2016. So I'm going to introduce her, and then she will just share.
Okay, so I actually did not go to school for what I'm doing now. When I left Nigeria, so I grew up here. I left Nigeria when I was 15, and I went to undergrad and grad school to become an economist. So I went to Columbia, I was going to be an economist, I was going to work for the World Bank, and I was going to come back to Nigeria and I was going to change the world, right? Everyone leaves thinking they're coming back to change the world. But about 6 months into my work at the UN, because I worked for the Nigerian mission to the United Nations, I started to have this desire to have a job that I loved. In America, there's this saying, people say, do what you love, do what you love. In Nigeria, they say do what you love, but you either become a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, right? Like those are the only professions that you're allowed to have. But in America, when you say do what you love, they actually mean do what you love. So I love clothes, but that was a problem because my parents were not going to let me go and work in a store after paying all that money for me to go to grad school. So I started Googling. I found my career on Google.
And here we've got Bijou Abiola.
Hello. Hi.
Can you see? So we're going to go on a quick commercial break and then we'll come back. For staying with us. So Bijou, do you want to do a quick shout out?
My name is Bijou. It's so great to be sitting here with the one and only, I call her Auntie because I've known her for so long, Auntie Millicent, who is looking so amazing, by the way. Can we just take a minute to acknowledge the flyness here? It's really good to be here. When Auntie told me she had started doing a show, I was like, oh my gosh, let's hear all about it. And I was in London for less than, really 3 days, and she wanted me to stop by. So here I am, and I can't wait to share my story.
Excellent. All right, Bijou. So I'm just going to keep firing questions, and some of them are my own things that I'm struggling with.
Okay.
And some of them are questions I got from some designers that wanted to know, from you, or just get advice and tips from you in terms of some things they're struggling with. Okay. And we'll get there. So, can you briefly just tell us how you found yourself in this in the fashion industry and how you have navigated up till this moment?
Well, like you said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I grew up around the sound of sewing machines. You know, remember my mom had her business. It was, you know, I grew up again, like I said, around that. She used to make attires for pretty much society women, presidents' wives. It was just like whoever was always through our doors. And so, but I never thought I would go into the industry. I just thought that it was something my mom did. I obviously enjoyed watching her do it. I love to get dressed. I said in the La Femme article how, like, I think it was like Auntie Kitchi or Auntie Leslie that told me how I would cry when they would give me a bag that didn't match my outfit. So I always loved it. But I wanted to study economics. I ended up going to graduate school for economic policy. And my dream was always to work at the World Bank. And so I started my internship with the United Nations, Nigerian mission to the United Nations in New York. And about 6 months in, I was also young, so I finished school early. I think I have a late birthday and whatever, so I finished school pretty early. So I was about 22, and I used to have to wear a suit to work every day. And I was just like, I'm not about this suit life. Like, you know, like I just, you know, when you're 22, those things you're thinking about. Like, I don't want to wear a suit today, not like, you know, what's my future looking like? So I didn't want to wear a suit, and I just started thinking a lot about, like, the future. I was waiting at the time to get a job offer from a bank in New York.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I don't like the public sector, so to speak. You know, things weren't getting passed fast enough. Resolutions were taking forever. And people really
Sorry guys, I didn't warn you. Bijou is in the United States, so if you, I'm sure you can pick up from the accent. I've told her, I said, you have to manage my Nigerian one. I can't change it. Yeah, keep going.
I don't know. I have to like find my deep Nigerian accent now.
No, don't worry. It's an international audience.
You know those people that like it, like they spend 1 week in America. Like, oh my gosh, water. So I know one. I know one. My own voice. So. Anyway, but I have lived there for almost 20 years. It's kind of hard.
I know. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. I can never pick up any anyway. So it's different.
So anyway, I thought I wanted to work for a bank, and then right about that time, I started thinking about like different sectors of New York. So what people don't know is banking, or I would say finance, is #1 driver for the New York economy, right? The second largest is fashion.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I was like, okay, like if this industry is big enough to be the city's second largest, you know, contributor from a financial standpoint, let me look into this a bit more. So I went to Google, guys. Google is big.
Google.
Yeah.
How many years ago?
I know,
Google.
this was like, 12 years ago actually. I went to Google, I was just looking up like corporate jobs in retail. When I was in grad school, I talk about this quite a bit because I think something to note about life is that you just never know how the little things will kind of add up to the big things. And I remember in grad school, I was working for J. Crew. I loved J. Crew. My cousin Bata will tell you, like me and J. Crew, until today, I mean, I don't want to say anything, but I don't wear J. Crew anymore necessarily, but not like I don't wear J. Crew. It's just, you know, I work for a different store now. So, I wore J. Crew back then. I love J. Crew, but I couldn't really afford it on a student's budget. So I went to work for them so I could get 50% off. So it was like smart move, right? You have to
exactly. Why not? Discount.
So discount, yeah. So I started to really enjoy the industry then. And so by the time I got to this point of an inflection, I looked up corporate jobs in fashion. I found out that one of the department stores in the States had like an executive training program where they bring people in from university to train them to become buyers. First, as people always ask me, I want to be a buyer, but they've never done anything in retail before. You have to like crawl before you walk, right? So I came in as an assistant. And the thing is, at the time, I knew what the job at the bank was going to pay me, but I also knew what the executive training program would pay, and it was almost half the price, half the salary. Lower. But again, like I said, I was 22. That wasn't what was driving me. I wanted to test out this fashion thing, see what would happen. And Millicent, like joke, I saw the job. I talked about this at the GTD interview. I stalked the guy. I don't know, this was back then when recruiters would put their names on things. If you're a recruiter, don't do it because there are crazy people like me out there who will stalk you. I stalked him. He was like, you're a bit overqualified. You've gone to grad school. Most people in this program come right from undergrad. I was like, I promise I'll work hard. Don't worry about my degree. Like, trust me. So he trusted me. He let me come in. I joined the program. And I said this in the article. I was like, okay, this is going to be short.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish in maximum 2 years, I'll go get a PhD. Because, you know, everyone was looking at me like, babe, you just paid all this money to go to Columbia for grad school. What are you going to fashion to go and do? And with this salary as well, right? Anyway, so that was about 12 years ago. Fast forward today, I've had, you know, this is, I think I'm in my 11th or 10th position in those 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I came in, I was an assistant planner first, actually. Most people always think of buying, but there's a planning side that does the financials. Planner, I held different positions, and then I got promoted to buyer about 7 years ago in the designer office, which was like a big deal for a first-time buyer. So my brands were like Ralph Lauren, Donna Karan,
Ooh, go girl.
Max Mara, Hugo Boss. So, you know, and I'm...
We know those names, don't we?
Exactly. So, like, you know, and I'm black, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I think in that space particularly, there weren't that many buyers of color, or not that I knew of, actually. Yeah. And so it was a very interesting time for me, because I think that was the first time I really started to understand how it wasn't necessarily about what you knew. It was also sometimes about how you looked.
Yeah.
I remember I come go into appointments with my assistant, and people would be greeting her. Yeah. I'm like, because her name is Bijou Abiola. Yeah, you looking
exactly.
like that?
Yeah.
Like, really? Of course I'm Bijou.
Exactly.
But none of that like swayed me. I just knew what I wanted, so I went at it. And then about a year ago, I worked with different brands at that point. About a year ago, I started thinking about the next step, and I knew that I wanted to do something more related to organizational leadership, still in the industry, and I applied and I got into Harvard's program for leadership development.
Well done, girl.
Yeah, so I did that. I'm going to be done in July, and so I've recently taken a role within my company to do more strategic work. So more like project management, strategy formation.
Did you have to apply for that job, or they offered it to you?
No, so again, I'm a little pushy. I just want to put that out there. It's annoying to many, but for me, it's work for me. So what's my business?
So if you want something, push for it.
You know, but in a very like, I don't know, it has to be a part of your DNA, right? So if you're not someone who's like that, don't go and start doing it, because it's not authentic to who you are. I think pushing, you keep pushing and you eventually hit something. You know, I always talk about patience. Patience means like, a lot of people, when they see you, they're not seeing the years that you put into the work that you had to do, right? So I think, especially for my generation, everything is instant, you know, and people just don't realize the value of persisting through things. Persisting means, you know, right now I might not have the customers that I want, but if I work at my craft, if I make the right kind of product, eventually someone will see that, someone will see it. So for example, I see this, so Dior, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Dior just came out with their Cruise 2020 line, right, or runway, and it's a lot of like Ankara, so people are up in arms, like, look at Dior, blah, blah. Yeah. And they collaborated with this woman, I don't know her name, but who used to make headbands. And that's the woman that made the headbands for their cruise line. The point of the story is that, like, I went back and I looked at her Instagram page, and she didn't really have that many followers. She didn't, you know, I don't know how Dior found her, but they found her. And guess what? She's not going to be unknown anymore, right?
I know.
So my point is that she was doing what she was doing. She was doing it well. Dior must have thought, oh, we need someone that makes these headbands. Like, looked and found one that was made well. It's a long way to say that I understand that Nigeria is different from here, right? Not every country has the same structure as the UK or Nigeria in terms or the US in terms of like, okay, if you work hard, you get what you deserve. But I'm a person of faith. I don't ever talk without talking about my faith. So I believe in prayer. I believe in asking God and seeking Him and asking for direction, right? So if you ask for direction, He'll guide you, and eventually He'll reward you. If you're not cheating anyone, if you're not stealing from anyone, if you're working diligently, the reward will come. Honestly, I don't get that. I don't understand what... I understand, because where there's mass, you know, you want to go where there's mass, so people can say, you know, I'm wearing, you know, whether it's JBL, like Joe by Lisa Flavio, which she makes like some of the cutest things. But the reality is, when I was in Nigeria in 2016 for GTV, I was so impressed with the number of young people who were not wearing brands anymore. They were just wearing Nigerian made, right? Like Nigerian made in Nigeria. Yes, maybe their shoes and their handbags were still from the brands, but the clothing itself was all Nigerian made. That made me so happy. Yeah. Because guess what? That stuff is sometimes better made than stuff that you find at, you know, the fast fashion high street brands. So I think my advice is a couple of things. A lot of times when Nigerian designers are making things, they're not making it to scale. So I talked about this in the master class, right? So they're usually just freehand sewing. Things fit differently. They don't use grade, like a grade sizing. So a small for this person will be different from a small for this person. So I think there's a lot of things that they could probably get right in terms of international standards for making clothing. But I also just think that we don't need the West, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible. Like, how large is our population, right? I just feel like trends come and go. Our rise, so Edward Enninful, who is like the editor-in-chief of Vogue UK, there are people of African descent who are rising to the ranks in the retail and fashion industry out west. But as far as designers wanting to get their product out west, I honestly think that it's only a matter of time, right? Because e-commerce, let's think of e-commerce. When I wear something, like for example, I got this necklace in Ghana, right? If I had a website, or if they had a website where someone could see it and go and order it, it's almost as good as if the person had a shop in the US, right?
Yeah.
But they have an e-commerce site.
Exactly.
So I really think that the next step is for people to build websites that are able to ship internationally.
Yeah.
Because when people start wearing your things and they want it, then they can actually start demanding it,
Right.
and you can ship it to them. I know shipping isn't cheap. That will probably increase the cost of your goods.
Well, where do you
but-
ship it to? That means you have to take
Oh, you
a
have to-
warehouse. you have
Yeah,
to take a-
well, there are a couple of options. You could use, so there are people who have warehouses that ship out other people's products.
Okay.
So you can do that.
Mhm.
Or you can ship directly from Nigeria, which is very costly.
Yeah.
There are plenty of options, but I think before they even start to think of coming out west, like build amazing businesses there at home. I just think that there's this like unhealthy obsession with the West. And I don't know, it's easy for me to say because
Yeah.
I live here.
Yeah.
So I want to
Yeah.
be very mindful of that. But I think when you've lived here for a certain amount of time, you're like, I love being in America. I love New York. I'm such a New Yorker. But I'm like, when I wear things that are Nigerian, people don't ask me like, is it Dior? They're just like, that's cute. They don't
It's
care.
different.
It's different.
Yeah.
Where do I get that? And I'm like, I can, if it's someone I know, I can say, I'll point you there.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I can't point them anywhere because they can't go in the store and find it. But also I think production,
Mhm.
we don't have factories in Nigeria. We just have people like doing, because eventually, so what happens when, a big manufacturer or a big brand calls you and says, please, can you make me like because these brands aren't ordering like 5. They're ordering like 20,000 units. Taylor's going to sit there and be sewing from when to when. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to really be ready to produce en masse, and we don't have factories. And that's another challenge
Yeah.
too, where we don't really produce to scale.
If you want to compete at that level, then you had better be ready in terms of your processes to be able to meet those demands. So if you want a H&M or a Prada to order your things, then you should be able to produce enough for Prada to be able to, to buy from you. And obviously the standards, these are the things that we need to look at. I know it's hard, it's like, but we don't have this, we don't have that. And that brings me to another question. The fact that Nigeria's environment is not suitable or is not producing, would you blame that, or would you put that at the feet of the designers or on the government?
I mean, it's two-part, right? Because how can you open a factory if there's never lights to keep the generator, like when you need generator oil to keep the light on? Do you know what I mean? When you then think of the sustainable cost of maintaining a factory in somewhere like Nigeria, it's really hard. So it's two-part. I think if you look at places like East Africa, like Kenya, that are starting to invite a lot of people from, or Ethiopia, where companies are coming to make things in those countries, it's because the government is investing in infrastructure that's letting these companies come in. And Nigeria really has not. I think this is an industry, the retail industry is one that is a huge potential for this country. Because the craftsmanship is there, the design, creative process is there. I think we now need a government that is invested in making it important, like Made in Africa should be. I think that we're a country that likes to party, right? So anything that's like a nice party process, you can pay anyone to come. I think they've gotten Kim Kardashian to come before. What has that done? I don't even know. My point is she's probably the biggest star out there right now. I don't disagree that the publicity helps, but what happens after people have publicly seen what you're doing? Where are they going to buy your things?
So,
So it's like
is it putting the
the cart before the horse. Yeah, it's like it almost has to be ready to scale. And I keep talking about scale because that's number one rule of business, right? The more if you produce more, you can produce it cheaper, and then you can make more profit. And we just don't have scale. Like that's something we don't have, and that goes back to production. We have the labor, because we have people. Of course, we have people who are skilled, who are from the north or whatever, who are skilled in making great product, but we don't necessarily have the infrastructure to support that. So
We're going to go on a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll go through the masterclass. Welcome back, viewers. Before we went on the break, we talked about a few things about the fact that we need to scale, the fact that we need to be ready. If you want to go to the international market, we need to be ready. Now we're going to be going through the masterclass. And please go back and watch the 2016 masterclass and compare it to today and see the difference. Things have moved, hopefully in the right direction. So
oh yeah,
you do.
no, you don't.
You don't.
Yeah, no, that hasn't changed. Even more so in 2019. I think they've closed more fashion actual stores in the past 3 years than they had by the time I started talking in 2016. So
online is the way.
Online is the way. I mean, people still want to shop. People still want experience. But if you don't have an online presence, you're in the West, right? So we're talking about the West.
We're talking about.
I think in Nigeria, by the time we get our delivery service better, like I think we should start preparing now to have an online presence. At least have people go on your website and shop for what they want, be able to place their order so that when they come to your store, it's already packed and ready for them. You know, I talked about dropship back then. I don't really know how relevant dropship is today anymore, but I think in this, it's still relevant. So dropship is essentially when you go to someone that already has a website and you say, hey, can you feature my product on your site, but you don't actually have to buy the stock from me. As the customer is ordering it, I'm shipping it from my warehouse.
Fantastic.
So that's a great way to sort of share like platforms.
Yeah.
So remember we talked about, okay, if you have a warehouse that is shipping things on your behalf, you can also partner with a brand or that already has a website but sells similar products to what you have, and you can feature your product, and then that delivery person will then manage the shipping of your product for you. You know, I don't know what I said in 2016.
You said what?
I also know.
Has it changed?
Yes, for sure.
It's changed.
Because it's all about information. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really about access to information. And I changed my mind on that, I think, after going through my program at school, because the more people you know, the more information you get.
It's a network.
It's a network.
The diversity of your network.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe in that.
Yeah, because we always hang around the same kinds of people, you know, like we're Nigerian, we hang around Nigerians. I love fashion, hang around people in fashion. Like, but your information scope is so limited when you hang around people you know or that are like-minded.
Correct.
So the more people you know, the more they can connect you. Let me tell you something, it's all about connection. Connect,
Meet people. Go out, meet people,
that
network.
are different from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with it.
A little commercial, guys. This is my philosophy. No won't kill you. Okay? So if you're not pushing towards something, or if you're not being persistent because you're afraid of a no, then I'm sorry, you're losing, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone tells you no, your nose doesn't fall off, you don't lose a finger, nothing happens. Yes, it's a little embarrassing, but like, big deal.
Correct.
You know, I have no shame.
No.
My friends will tell you, I have no shame, and I just think that was my own. Tell me no, I'll keep going.
And that's again.
So after that, so Beyonce wore this designer. I don't know if she's African, but when she wore her, forget it. Like, it blew up. But are people still talking about the girl today? Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe she made her
millions.
millions.
I think exactly. So that's what I'm saying. If you want your millions, then yeah, maybe publicity
One quick one,
and then but you have to keep evolving, right? So like maybe Beyonce wore her dress, and that's what people came to her for. That's the thing about fashion, it's always changing. So when people get excited that they're making that one thing that people like, you always have to think like 3 years ahead, right? What's the next thing going to be? What can I evolve into? Like, it's an evolution. It's almost like life. Like, it's always changing. So the right publicity doesn't hurt anyone. Yeah, but I almost think that a lot of the designers in Nigeria are kind of all moving in that direction of making their things so expensive that only a certain group of people wear it. Why do you think fast fashion has been the main winner in the retail industry? Because someone came along that was like, fashion is for the masses, and they started creating things that you see on the runway for the masses, and those are people that are making money today. So I just feel like, you know, as much as designers want to keep their things exclusive, there's room for like quick access product.
And we're the most populous nation. How can you still be talking exclusive?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so where's the money going to come from?
Exactly.
Remember Pure Water?
Yeah.
Pure Water was a success because they retailed it so the common man could buy it.
Right. I really, instead of focusing on the things that Nigeria doesn't have, like
It's
I
because
just
of what
keep-
we have.
Yeah, I
And what are
think
they? Tell me the good
people.
things.
The people. I think that the talent, like you can't manufacture talent. The talent is there. People are so talented and so creative. Look at Nollywood. I mean, come on.
Or the music industry.
The like music industry. I was in Topshop and for like a good 20 minutes it was all Nigerian music.
I know.
And likewise, I think what has happened with Nollywood, what has happened with the music is going to happen with the fashion. Oh yeah, this is one of our buyers versus bloggers. I think the buyer, they'll think the buyer is king, or maybe not, because now when brands have sites, if they get a blogger to wear it, you don't need a buyer to have it in like the stores. They can just come directly to your site.
Yeah.
So I still think that the buyer is king because she controls the checkbook as to what goes in the stores. But
So we have to tag along to the buyer.
bloggers, yeah, well, bloggers, I don't know. Personally, I think that the influencer economy is kind of dwindling down. Like people used to spend a lot of money like flying influencers here and there, getting them to wear their things with such short-term success. Versus we have a buyer that actually brings your stuff in the store and increases your scale and has your stuff in more stores than just your website. So I don't know, I'm partial.
Okay. But you know what? You in 2016 you gave an example of Lupita and the Kardashian Kingdom, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying that they're bigger than the buyer.
Right.
Because if they wear your brand,
Then
someone will come for it.
Yeah.
Is that still
Yeah, I mean, anything Kardashian wears anything from you
Yes.
and it's big. So I do think that it's a mix of things, but I think that if you're looking for, so if you're someone that has your own e-commerce site and you don't want your stuff to be in any other store, then the buyer doesn't matter to you. Because the buyer is really the one in the stores that determines what comes in. But if you have your own e-commerce site, like I was saying, then you don't need a buyer. You just need Kendall to wear. Or Baby Stormy.
Or me
something.
wearing the middle etc. You never know. So Beach, if you're not in the fashion industry, where else would you have been?
If I wasn't in fashion, I would be a lawyer. Just because
I
it's the
think you
thing
do
that-
well.
Yeah,
think you
everyone
do well.
in this family is, and I think my convincing nature.
Yeah, I think you'll do well as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Bishop, thank you so
Of
much.
course, of
Thank
course.
you so
Thank you
much
for
for
having
coming.
me.
Thank you so much for sharing openly.
Of course.
And I hope you inspire someone today. I know you
I hope
inspire.
so
You
too.
inspired me. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Mm.
So, if you are an international viewer, so non-African, you're looking at this, please stop AIDS. Give us trade. The African market is yearning to cross the ocean and sell to you. Make it easier for us and give them access to it. And for the Africans, it's not always about going across. Yeah? Let's grow ourselves, let's grow our roots. And the government, please, do something about the environment, make it more attractive. And one last thing, let's stop silos. Let us think about cooperating with ourselves. Arise, Africa, and let's take our position. We have been dubbed emerging market for too long. Let's emerge. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Real Talk with Millie. And yes, share so that someone else will be inspired and someone else will have these tips. Follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. And the name to look out for is Real Talk with Millie. See you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you.